Hello, my name is Jonathan Harris, and this video is going to be a very basic overview of PowerShell and how you can use it in your day-to-day operations. So without further ado, let's get started. I've got my outline over here on our screen here on the left. It's going to basically give us an overview of what PowerShell is, getting started, looking at some of the commandlets and how aliases are used. That gives us backward compatibility with things like DOS and some commands that you're probably familiar if you used DOS back in the day. And then we'll go down and to learn about variables, because PowerShell is different than DOS, because DOS was an operating system, and PowerShell is a scripting language, fully object-oriented. So we'll look at some of the differences between PowerShell and Microsoft DOS. We'll look at outputs and how we can chain outputs from one commandlet and pass that as inputs to a next. So you can kind of chain these commands together to get the functionality that you really need, right? Look at some scripting, and then we'll end with some practical examples where we're actually going to use PowerShell to have it do effective stuff as a normal system administrator would want to use PowerShell to do. To get us started here, I've got a setup over here, and we'll come back and refer to this outline here, but I'm going to kind of overlay it with some virtual machines that I've got going on here. This is my server. It's called Server 1, and it's got a simple Active Directory structure set up. So I'm going to leave this machine in our view over here, kind of laid out, so you'll see how we have Server 1. And then this is my client that's going to connect into Server 1. I won't go full screen with it yet, but we'll log into this one. In fact, let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go to Input, Keyboard, Control-Alt-Delete. We'll go ahead and log in as the Bob user. And we'll get Bob set up. See if I can adjust. See if we can get this to scale right for us now. Make it a little bit bigger so we can see what's going on, get a little more real estate for us. Why are you not stretching here? Let's go to our view. Well, if I scale it, it'll make it a little bigger for us, but we'll go ahead and scale it just to hopefully get it. Oops, did not go down the other screen here. There we go, and now let's see if I can make this bigger. All right, that's a little better for us. Okay, good. We're gonna get PowerShell going on over here in our Windows 10 client. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the history of PowerShell. And the best thing to do when you're trying to learn something new is go find out about it. I always use Wikipedia. That's my go-to. Now that we've got generative AI, I've started to use that a little bit more. I'll go in and ask Copilot questions, or I'll use ChatGPT, one of those. Bard seems to be working pretty well for me lately, so I've been using, I'm sorry, that's Bard is now Gemini, so I've been using Gemini a little bit more lately. And then my other favorite one up here is Claude. Claude's pretty awesome too. It's I found them all to be pretty useful across the board in terms of giving us good content. So we'll stick with Claude here for a second, and we'll just ask, what is PowerShell? Give us a quick little definition. And if it's a little over your head, or you need it to be a little bit more formal, you can always tell it to explain it as if you're a child or if you're a teenager, that kind of thing, and it'll give you a little bit better output towards your level or your skill set here. But one thing it's a command line interface, so we're going to be typing in text. It's not graphical. We're not going to be clicking buttons and having different kind of controls on the screen. It's all going to be text-based. It's scripting language. It's an interpreted language, so it's kind of like Python in that sense. It is fully object-oriented, like it says below, number 3, right? Which is a lot nicer feature if you're used to something like Bash, if you're a Linux user. That's text output, and all your manipulations from one command to the next command is all dealing with text manipulations. So you have to use awk and grep and all those commands to modify the objects, because it's really coming to you as a string or what we call text. And so PowerShell is fully object-oriented, so you're getting back objects which you can actually manipulate and work on. So it's a fully object-oriented language, which makes the output a lot easier to use and a lot more flexible. Extensible, right? So I can write a class for it, I can write a commandlet, and I can give it to somebody else, and they'll be able to build off of that and use that in their libraries or over their functionality. So it's very extensible. Lots of people have written scripts for there. There's lots of ones that like Microsoft's written that are well documented and digitally signed, so you can trust those. There are some other ones you can find out on GitHub, so just be careful with those because you never know who wrote those and if they have malicious intent. So whenever you're looking at a new script, make sure you read it and understand what's going on. You don't have to be an expert in programming, but hopefully something like watching this video or something similar to this, you'll be able to pick up the gist of what's going on with the command and understand if they're trying to do anything nefarious, because you can see the actual language. Because it's a scripting language, you don't compile it, you'll be able to see the text. So hopefully if you understand PowerShell enough, you'll be able to understand what the language is telling you, right? Cross-platform, haven't seen it used much. I've only really seen it used on Windows, but you can certainly run it on Linux or Mac, so it does cross-platform. But again, 99% of its use that I've seen at least is all going to be in the realm of Windows. What is it used for? It's not an operating system like DOS. It's a system administration tool. It's used to push patches, monitor systems, all those kinds of administrative functions that we need to do. So it allows for that to be centrally managed, and I can remotely push things out to my various machines all through PowerShell scripting, right? It works with WMI, COM, and .NET objects. Since it's based on the .NET language, it works really well with languages like C#. All right, what is WMI? Windows Management, and I forgot the last what it means, so we're gonna go ask. But that's basically, what is WMI? It's the Microsoft interface into various components, such as what services are running, what patches, and all that kind of things have been pushed to your system. But it's the Windows Management Instrumentation. That's what it stands for. So we'll see how PowerShell integrates nicely with WMI, so we can start and stop scripts and things like that. All right, so that's kind of an overview. If you go to the Wikipedia page, Wikis, WIKI. Since I'm at a hotel right now, I'm working off my laptop keyboard, so bear with my typing. So we're going to go and just learn about PowerShell here, and you can read through it. It first appeared back in 2006, which is a key date there. Remember that. It's 17 years old, so it's not relatively that new, but it is gaining in popularity. So if you're just now getting into it, understandable. It's been around for a while, but it's starting to mature to the point where it's being used a lot more in system administration. But it is definitely different than DOS, and we'll take a look at that here in a second. What is DOS? DOS is a full-on operating system, right? It's got to deal with the kernel, the core of the operating system, and all that goes along with it. Whereas PowerShell really rides on top of the operating system. It's an application, right? It's just a text application. It's a command scripting language is really what it is. What versions are out there? Where does it tell us about different versions? Here we go. So you'll see that PowerShell 1, and as the servers have progressed, they get newer versions. And then the newest versions are actually cross-platform. So I think it's version 7 that they went cross-platform, somewhere in there. If you read through it, it'll probably talk to you a little bit more about it. But all right, that's enough kind of on the background. You can search those yourself, right? Go to Google and search these things. Learn a little bit about it. Be curious, right? That's kind of the name of the game, is when you're trying to learn something, dig in deep on it. All right, so with that being said, I want to talk a little bit about what DOS is. And this is my favorite virtual machine. This is my Windows 3.1 virtual machine. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here, kind of put it in the middle of the screen. And this is DOS in its heyday, right? Like when it was kind of taking over the world. Microsoft back in 1986, 93, somewhere in there. This is actually Windows 3.1. So if I type in WIN and run it as a command, this is an executable running on top of DOS, right? DOS is the kernel of the operating system, and it's going to actually run an entire Windows. Let's see. Windows 3.1 pop up. And if you're like me, you get in nostalgia mode because this is the first real main operating system I used as a kid. I had an Apple IIc before this, but that was really my sister's computer. So this was my first computer, was a Windows 3.1.1. What was the password? I think I set it to be password. Let me see. That is, yes, there's my password. All right, so you'll see this is this is Windows 3.1. It's an old, very old operating system. I think it came out in the early 90s. I used to play Minesweep all the time. This game here where you click on little buttons and bombs blow up. I'll stop before I kill myself here, but you play that game. I could play this game for hours. Let me close that out. But what I was trying to get at here is that DOS is an entire operating system, unlike PowerShell, which is just a scripting language. So DOS and PowerShell are very similar in the sense that you both type commands and you get outputs. DOS is text-based, right? So if I type in a command on DOS, it's going to give me output as text. So if I type in, for instance, dir for directory, it's going to give me the files that are located on this computer. But it's the kernel of the operating system. All right, so what am I trying to get at here? Basically, I'm trying to show you what DOS is. If you want to do things like change directory, you have to do cd, and you want to go into, I don't know, the win directory. So, there's a DOS directory. Let's go into DOS, right? You'll notice there's a bunch of commands you have to type, like cd, so I'm going to type dir for directory, cd. All these things are very abbreviated. And why do you think they're abbreviated? Think about it for a second. This is the time of computers, and they're brand new in the market. RAM is sparse. Hard drives are really small. There's actually Windows 3.1, I think it was a 16-bit operating system, so it's not even a 32-bit operating system. And we've been running 64-bit operating systems now since 2000. So DOS is pretty legacy. DOS commands. And you'll notice that there's a nice little Wikipedia page on DOS commands. But all the DOS commands are going to be as short as possible so that they can save space on the hard drive and in processing RAM and all that. The smaller they are in terms of number of characters, like if I type in cd instead of saying the word change directory, I'm saving a little space in RAM and I'm saving a little space in the hard drive every time I'm referencing that command. So that's why DOS commands you have to learn, it's two things, right? You got to learn computers, plus you have to learn the language that they're using. In other words, you're learning two things at once. Whereas PowerShell, yeah, you're learning a scripting language, but it's much more verbose. So if you can get the concept behind it, it's going to make a lot more sense when you're typing out full-on commands. Now, keyboards can take you a little bit longer. If you use tab autocomplete, it helps, and we'll learn about tab autocomplete here in a little bit. But go through some more commands here. Let's see. You'll see like check disk. That was one I had to use all the time. CLS, clear screen. That's a pretty common one. When you get too much text on the screen, you want to clear it off. You type CLS. But you can go through this page and just Wikipedia, look up list of DOS commands. All right, so that's it for Windows. We'll go ahead and close this for now. I just wanted to show you what an old operating system looks like and what Windows is, the generations of Windows have come from was originally DOS-based. Now the kernel is a core part of the operating system, is separated from things like our command prompt and things like our graphics and even PowerShell, right? These are all applications that ride on top of the kernel, which allows us to get more security baked in because we're not tying the commands directly into the kernel and exposing things at the kernel level. We're having a very, very tightly controlled programming interface into the kernel, but the core of the kernel is much smaller than it was back in DOS days. All right. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get through our 7 steps here that we're going to try to outline. This video is probably going to go a little longer than I was expecting, so feel free to pause and take breaks. Maybe you should probably take a break after each one of these sections for a minute or two, just to stretch yourself, get your legs up, and get your eyes stop staring at the screen for so long. But feel free to take breaks anytime you want. Let's make this video. I'll put it here so we can kind of read what's going on. All right, so step 1, introduction to PowerShell. The 3 things that I want you to take away is it's a task automation and configuration management framework built by Microsoft. They've open sourced it so you can obviously use it cross-platform, but originally built by Microsoft for managing Microsoft systems. It's a command line interface, right? So it's like a shell where I'm typing in commands, fully object-oriented that we learned about. so that it's giving me back objects rather than just pure text. It's built on .NET, which is a framework that Microsoft's built where it allows other programming languages. There's Visual Basic, C#, some other languages like that are leveraging that .NET Core framework. All right, so let's go in and see some examples. And the first thing we'll do is I'll open up a command prompt. So I'll type CMD on Windows. In fact, let's do this. We're going to click a folder, and we're going to go to my documents. And I've created a normal document here. And then if I go to View, Show Hidden, you'll see that I have a hidden document here as well. So I have a normal document, a hidden document, and I just created two quick documents. If you want to do that yourself, you can just right-click, say New, create text document, whatever you want to call it. Call it something cool like, we'll call this test. I don't know. That's easy enough. And then if you right-click on to test, you can go to Properties, and you can change some attributes about it, such as, is the file hidden? In this case, we'll go ahead and hide it. So you can see test is now a hidden document. See, it kind of grays it out a little bit. Go ahead and uncheck hidden items. Now, hidden items, you think of like a security mechanism for protecting against bad guys. Not really. It's meant from you doing accidental deletions of core configuration files you don't want to accidentally delete. So if you hide them, you're less likely to come in and do like something like Control A and then hit delete, right? The delete button. Because if I hit Control A and delete, it doesn't delete the hidden files if I'm not showing them. All right, if I type right here and I just type CMD, it pulls up a command prompt. So we'll pull up the command prompt, and let's make this text a little bit bigger. Go to Properties, Font, and we'll just change it to something there. All right, so if I type in dir, you'll see that it just shows me my normal document, right? It doesn't show me the hidden. If I want to see the hidden, I type dir, I think I just put, is it slash question mark, something like that. Yeah, there we go. So slash question mark gives me the help about the command dir instead of actually executing the command. And you'll see there's one here called /a, and that displays all the files with these specific attributes. Directories, hidden files, system files, all the good stuff, right? So it'll show me everything if I do the /a command. So let's clear our screen. We saw that was the CLS command. Oops, I can't see what I'm typing, so let me just move this up. And I'm typing CLS to clear the screen. And let's make this a little bit smaller. And now if I type in dir/A, you'll see now I see my hidden text. My test file is also hidden. I've also got some shortcuts that it was keeping hidden from me because these are system directories. So that /a gives me all the attributes. Let's go look at the equivalent in PowerShell. So to pull up PowerShell, we'll click in the same spot here, and we'll just spell out PowerShell. And feel free to pause and run these commands as well on your own systems. I highly recommend doing that. Nothing like getting hands on the keyboard when trying to learn this stuff. That's really the key to this whole thing. All right, we'll go to Properties, change our font size so we can see it on our screen a little better. And we're going to go ahead and type in dir. And you'll see I see my normal document that I have placed in there, but I don't see any of the hidden stuff, just like we did with DOS. Let's do dir /question mark, right? You think it'd be the same, but it's not. I'm going to get an error, or it actually gives me nothing. If I do a dir/a, because we know that's what it was in the DOS command, that should give me all the attributes, right? Well, not really. That's because dir is not really a command in PowerShell. What dir is an alias to this PowerShell command called getChildItem. So let's clear our screen. CLS will work as well. So let's do get-child, oops, if I can spell that right, child item, and you'll see it's there. Now, if I want to get information about getChildItem, first of all, I want you to see the difference, right? dir, DOS command, really short, 3 letters. PowerShell, it has this verb noun concept, So get dash child item. So it's this verb now, and you'll see all the commandlets that are native PowerShell will have this structure, right? The action that you're going to do, and then the object you're going to do the action on. In this case, child item is because I'm in a directory called documents. Documents you can think of as a container, and so the children are what's inside of a container. So that's why we get the child item. It's showing me everything inside of the container for documents. All right, so I want to learn how to use the get child item or the extra attributes of it. There's a commandlet in PowerShell called get help. I'm going to run get help on get child item. And you'll see how as soon as it becomes unique enough, like CHIL, I hit tab, CHIL, and I hit tab, it auto completes it for me. As soon as it becomes unique enough and I hit the tab button, it'll fill in the rest of the text automatically. So it saves me a lot of typing, and it also helps me when I figure out if I do a typo, like you saw earlier, and I hit tab and it's not giving me what I want. Then I'm like, oh, I have a typo. So it gives me a quick clue, and it also helps me complete my text as I hit the tab button. So it tells me if I made a typo, and it also helps me get if I don't have a typo, to actually get what I want. All right, so there's the output for get child item. It's kind of hard to read. I never really liked the help. It's just as bad in Linux, right? If you do the command, trying to read through this stuff is like pulling teeth. Highly recommend just going to ChatGPT, and we'll just do that real quick. ChatGPT, and I probably have to log in because I haven't been here in a while. Log in with my Googles. All right, so let's type in PowerShell. Show hidden files. Now I'm getting a paragraph or an exclamation of what's going on. And then you can also see that, actually, I don't even really like these answers. I mean, these would work. The force, I think, is the closest that I was going to show you. Let's go back in and see if I can read the actual help, just to show you what it does here, right? So this is the command. Then anything in square brackets is completely optional. You'll notice it starts with a square bracket here, which means get child item can be run by itself without any extra parameters. In this case, if I give it a path, then I have to give it a string that I'm looking at. So I have to give it the directory I'm looking at. If you look down here, there's one called -hidden. So that's an optional command I can pass in with get child item. So let's clear our screen. So get dash child item dash hidden. There you go. And so that shows me the hidden file and my test file. Now if I did a force instead of a hidden, that'll show me them as well, right? So it's forcing it to show everything. So you could have used the ChatGPT output, or you could read through the actual help. Either way, but you get the idea, is that it's slightly different than, where did my, oh, that's what had happened. Let me get my text document up so we can talk about that. So dir is the DOS command, and it's different. Even if I type dir inside PowerShell, it's not the same command that I'm running. It's aliased to this commandlet called get child item, and it behaves slightly different, as we saw. All right, so let's clear my screen one more time. We'll type CLS, enter, and we're going to see get alias, and I'll type in dir, and you'll see dir does in fact point to get child item. I just wanted to show you how that works. And let me see if I can clear my screen. Let me see if I can get this. Maybe it's because I have the font so large, it's kind of cutting it off there a little bit. We'll change it slightly smaller to 24. And I'm going to up arrow a couple of times till I get to the get alias out. Yeah, I was trying to have it spell out the word version, but it doesn't seem to like that there, but there he goes. Okay, cool. And you'll see that what I'm getting back, in this case, is an object that has several attributes. It has the fact that it's an alias, it has the name of the alias, and it has versions and all that kind of stuff. So it's an object, not just text, although it displays output to the screen as text. Okay, so that is number one. Hopefully now you've seen a little bit about DOS and now understand the basics of PowerShell using that verb noun concept and fully spelled out words rather than shortcutted words like dir for directory. All right, we're going to move on into the background, how to open PowerShell. I showed you that as a way to do it from the Explorer window, right? Remember, if I open up an Explorer window and in the address bar up here, I can type in PowerShell. And what will happen is it'll open PowerShell in that specific directory, which is kind of nice, right? Because if I want to manipulate files, normally I want to do it in a specific folder. I can open up that folder, type PowerShell, and get directly to that directory. If I want, I can also come down to this little start button and type the word PowerShell. And I can click it this way. However, it's going to open in my home directory. In this case, I'm logged in with a test user named Bob. And so it's going to open up in that Bob directory. Again, it's going to default the parameters, so I have to go in here and change my font size if I want to have better font. Okay, so when we're writing our commands, sometimes we're going to save these as scripts. So we can comment things in our scripts with a pound sign. So if I want to say kind of what I'm doing before I actually do it, so that way I come back 2 months from now and I want to look at my code and I kind of understand what's going on, I can read the comments. The comments are completely ignored by PowerShell. So if I type in pound, oops, let me click over to my PowerShell, pound, this is a, and it doesn't actually execute anything, but it's there. And I'm not going to do this actually at a command prompt. What I would do is I'm going to do this in a script file that I'm going to save. But I just wanted to show you that they're there for the user. They're not there for the computer to interpret to mean anything. All right, but write host will let us write our first command out to the screen. And all first programming languages start with the hello world. So we'll start with our hello world. And all that does, and I spelled world with capital O, there we go. All it does is it really echoes out the command that we typed, just back out. So in true sense, we could just use echo. And I did it again. But as we learned last in section 1, if it's not a noun or verb noun, then it's probably an alias. So let's look up what echo gives us. Echo is an output to write output, and we're using write host up here. So I wanted to point that out. They are slightly different in the way that they work. So write host is going to use the toString. So it's actually, and if you're familiar with programming languages, toString means I'm converting the output to a string, and a string is just text, right? Anything that starts with a quote sign, ends with a quote sign, that's going to be a string. And so write host actually gives me output as a string. In this case, it's okay because the input that I'm giving it, hello world, in this case is a string, so it's outputting it as a string. But if I have objects, I want to write out the object and keep it in that object form because I can manipulate and modify objects. Whereas strings, it's string manipulation, not quite as intuitive and not as powerful. So I tend to use write output, but I want to show you that both write output and write host, intensive purposes for this example, would do the exact same thing. Right? So if I type in write output, yeah, I'll give it an exclamation point. Why not? There we go. So it does the exact same output as you see there. All right, so that's number 2, and I guess I must have copied stuff off here. Let me undo that. All right, the Python case insensitivity. That's a big difference than something if you're coming from the Linux realm. Everything is very much case sensitive, but you see here that I said get alias all lowercase. If I did get alias all uppercase, oops, did I not spell that right? I did not. Let's clear our screen with our CLS. Clear our screen. There it is. And let's fix this. Why is that? Oh, I did a get underscore. Haha. There it is. You'll notice that it does matter that I have to use the right character, but it doesn't matter if it's uppercase versus lowercase. However, there is a correct casing, and it is capital G, capital A. That is the correct way to do that. In fact, if I have this as a lowercase, and let's uppercase L, lowercase I, let's make this a couple of A. This will also work. And if I hit tab after I've typed the command, it'll fix all the casing for me. So I'm going to bring the arrow back here and hit tab. You'll notice how it changed the uppercases and lowercases to be correct. So there is a correct way to do it, but it doesn't matter because PowerShell will interpret it however it'll fix the casing for you automatically, right? So it knows it's supposed to be capital G and capital A, and everything else is supposed to be lowercase, so it'll automatically do that for you. All right, let's fix this so you can kind of see everything we're doing. Oops, too far. Type CLS, clear the screen. All right, so feel free to take a break. I'm going to move on to step number 3 now. We've already hit on aliases because it's such a foundational part of PowerShell and how things are backward compatible with DOS. So it's supposed to emulate DOS as much as possible. However, it adds a lot more features to it. So we emulate it by using these things called aliases, right? So aliases, they just point to, or they're copies of the commandlets that we're going to run. So the commandlets are really what's going on behind the scenes and what PowerShell is using. The alias just points to that. So I can type in something like, Control Z that. So if you're a DOS user, you type dir. If you're a Linux user, you type ls. In this case, they both point to our get child item. All right, all 3 of those commands are doing the exact same thing. So if I do get-alias, and I let it run for a couple seconds, these are all the aliases that are set up inside PowerShell for us automatically. And you'll see there's quite a few. Like if I just want to use the word start, it really means start process, if I want to start a process. So you can see there's some of them are new for us. They're not old DOS commands. Like pwd is an old DOS command. Oops. Pwd stands for print working directory, or I think it's print working directory or present working directory. I don't know. It depends on who you believe the genesis of what pwd stands for. But either way, all it does is tells you what current directory that you're located in. That's an old DOS command as well as Unix command. But some of these other ones are new, right? So we didn't used to have, let's see here, RWMI for remove WMI object. That's a new PowerShell command only. That's not dating back to the DOS days. But there's some shortcuts that we just liked instead of having to write this all out that we use over and over again. So we can create our own aliases, in fact, if we wanted to, right? All right, so these are all the aliases that come by default. We can certainly make our own. But PowerShell comes with a bunch automatically off the bat. All right, what else is on our thing that we got to learn here? All right, so we're going to use get command, list available commands. This shows us so this gives us all the aliases with get alias. Get command shows us all of the PowerShell built-in commandlets that we have natively to PowerShell. Type CLS, git command, and go ahead and run this command. And you'll see this one will take a little while because this is going through and enumerating all of the commandlets that come with PowerShell. And you see they all pretty much start with a verb and noun, but there will be some every once in a while that you'll see that aren't just commandlets, right? There might be a function or they might be an alias. So this will show me all of those. I believe it shows me functions too. Let's see here. Yep, functions under there as well. And usually the ones that have that are doing something like a set also has a version number. So now this is kind of nice, except for a lot to sort through, right? What if I know that the command that I really care about is going to be something with remove? Like, oops, let me clear my screen. So let's do, actually, we'll just do git command, pipe that through. Do I have, well, I'll do this now. Where, well, I don't want to get to this yet. We're going to looking about piping in a second. I think that's number 5 or 6, where we pipe things together. But so that's the git command. We've seen the git help. With git help, you give it any command you want or any alias that you want. So we see that we have an alias called GPS for git process. Let's get help on git process. And then that gives us the help file from PowerShell again on how to use the git process commandlet. If I just type git process, and you'll notice that it starts with a bracket, which means it's all optional. So let's just go ahead and git process as is and see what that gives us. That gives us all of the processes running on this system. So let's, for instance, if I run calc, now I have a calculator app running. Let's see if I can find that if I do git process. And wait for that to finish, scroll up a little bit, and then hopefully there's one called calculator. All right, so let's clear our screen. All right, let's do git process, and then we're going to take the output of git process, we're going to run it through a pipe, which means the output from the first process is passed in as input to the second command that we're going to run here. In this case, git process, you saw that it gave us back all of the objects of all the processes that are running. Then I'm going to run it through those processes, each individual process through the git member. So we're going to copy this and run this over here. Maybe not. We'll just type it out. Process, pipe, and then git member. And then now you can see that it gives us a whole bunch of fields, right? So if I can have the name of the process, I can close the process. So this is what an object gives us, right? It gives us all of these capabilities beyond just the text of the output, right? So now I could start a process, I can wait for a process to exit and do something when it exits. So these are all of the different fields that I can leverage now because we're using an object-oriented programming language. All right, so there we go. That's basically number 3. So we're moving on to number 4 now. All right, variable types. It is a scripting language, which means we can do programs with it. With programs, we need to have variables. Variables are a holding container for data that we want to put in or store. They're loosely typed. So that is a nice feature. If you're used to programming languages like C#, everything is very tightly typed. In other words, you have to explicitly say what data that you're putting in, what type of object that you're putting into the variable at source code time, right? Not at compile time. So you have to tightly type it when you're writing out the code. PowerShell is a little nicer than that. It lets you loosely type it. So as you define the variable, it gets the type implied from whatever you're passing into it. In this case, this example here, this is a string because remember, strings start with a quote sign and end with a quote sign. So that tells us that it's a string. And so in this case, we're going to store a variable called name is John. And then you'll notice that this turned green because this is a comment, right? So if it's dark green, that means it's a comment. Comments are completely ignored by the interpreter, right? So in other words, PowerShell really is only looking at name equals John. That's all that the interpreter is looking at. This is all for the developer, so they kind of understand what's going on. So we'll store a variable name, and this is the assignment operator, which means whatever's on the right-hand side gets passed into the variable on the left-hand side. So if I reference that variable, so if I do that right, I can spell right, right, output, and I type in $name, oops, not at name, $name, you'll see that I get back what was stored in that variable. In this case, the word John was stored in the name variable. We have other data types too, so I could do something like age equals, oops, not pound age, that makes it a comment. I want a $age. All right, in this case, we'll say 30. And then if I do $age, and because it is an object, it'll tell us, in this case, it's a 32-bit integer. If I do that same thing for our name, $name.getType, you'll see that the name variable is, in fact, a string. Now, it inferred that because the right-hand side is a string here, the right-hand side is an integer here. So dynamically, PowerShell is assigning the type based on what the assignment is given it. So in other words, this one here, if I do colors, our third example, copy that, come over here and paste. Oops, doesn't seem to like my paste very well. Let's see, did I not set that up? Well, I don't know, mess with the scaling and all that. We'll just type it in. That's not that much. Type in $colors is equal. So I'm doing the assignment now. You see how as soon as I watch this little caret right here, as soon as I hit the equal sign, it now turns red because now it's an assignment command I'm going to run. I'm going to use the @ sign, open paren, and then I'm going to give it 3 strings separated by commas. And then I'm going to close it out. And that is the definition of an array. So now let's fill the strings in with some input here. So in this case, we're going to do colors. So I'll type in red, blue, and green. All right. So now if I write object, output, $colors, there we go. We get 1 per line. And it maintains insertion order. So red was the first one in, red is the first one out. Blue was second, and then green. I switched the orders, but you get the idea, right? So the order that I put them in by separating them by commas is the order that they're going to come out later. And we'll see this when I have to do, later on when we do arrays, not arrays, loops. And I could loop through item by item of an array. It'll go through based on insertion order. The next type is called a hash table. And technically, I don't think it maintains insertion order on this, but it might for output reasons. But I think internal, the structure, the way it handles it in memory, it may not actually store it in insertion order. Because hash tables are a unique data structure that's actually very memory efficient, but it also gives us a much faster response time when we look stuff up based on, in this case, if I look up the name, it'll give me back Alice pretty quickly. If I want to look up, I don't know, the city, it'll tell me New York. And I can do that per person. So a hash table is going to have think of it like almost like a database in memory. That's what a hash table is, right? I'm storing rows or tuples of a database as a hash table. So this would be one row inside of a database with 3 columns, right? It would be, the columns would be name, age, and city, and then the values within a row would be Alice, 25, in New York. And that's how you can think of a hash table. And if I have multiple people, maybe I have Bob, he's 30 and he's from Orlando, right? So this would just be, his data would be those 3 variables, that tuple. All right, so let's type this out just so you can see the data type. $person equals at, oops, pound, I keep doing that. My keyboard is hard to see it in this hotel room. All right, so name equals Alice, comma, separate that with I'm sorry, this is semicolon separation. Age equals 25, which is a data structure of integer, and then city is equal to New York, which is a string, so that means it's going to have open and close of parentheses. And I typed something in wrong. What did I type in wrong? Oh, I did a comma. That's what I did. I keep confusing. Yeah, no, I did something else wrong. Okay, let's see what else I did wrong here. Oh, I did it as an array versus a hash table. So I got to do curly braces, not parentheses. All right, see if our third time's a charm. All right, it is. All right, let's clear our screen, get all those errors off our screen. And so now I should be able to reference the parameters inside of our hash table. So the hash table is $person. And then I can do dot name. And that should give me back Alice. I could do dot age. And that gives me back her age. If I wanted to do like a welcome message, so say they logged into our website and we want to print out their name, we could do, right, we'll do host this time. We're going to say, and in this case, it's going to be $person dot name. Oops, did I not do that right? I should have got it to me. It does not like that. Give it to me as a hash table. Well, we could just do the actual name of the other person. So we had another variable called name, right? And I can't remember who John, right? That was who we stored. Oh, okay, well, I could do it. And if I wanted to, let's do hello, John. Is your color, and in this case, we're going to do colors. And I'm going to say of 0. So the 0th element in our array, which the first one should be red. So we'll go ahead and see if this works. No, it did not like that either. So I should have said red, but I guess it gave me blue and green because it gave me, oh, yeah, no, it should have. I guess it dereferenced the last thing. It didn't actually reference the right thing, but that's fine. We get the idea, right? So I can reference variables. Okay, there we go. I play around with that. Lots to variables. That should have given us, let's see what that colors of 1 is. That should be blue, so colors of 0 should be red. So why did that not give me red? I don't know, but it certainly works here. So that's good enough for me. All right, feel free to take a break, and we'll move on into pipelines and output from one command into the input of another command. So we've seen the get process. Get process gives us all the processes running on this system. Now what I want to do is I want to sort the objects based on CPU usage. So I'm going to take the output from get process because they're objects, not strings. Now I can actually get meaningful data out of them, right? So you'll notice that if we go all the way to the top, it tells us the idea, I think, say, there's CPU, right? It tells us the CPU utilization. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to descending order of CPU. So let's clear our screen. Okay, CLS, just one more time, just do that. Okay, get process, piped out to, we're going to sort the object now. Again, verb, noun pairing, so get processes gives me all the processes that are running. Sort object is now going to take the output from the processes and sort it based on descending from the CPU. DES, there we go, descending. See that tab autocomplete helped me figure out that I had a typo there. Descending, and let's just leave it at that. We're just going to descend the order, and if I scroll up to the top, you'll see from here on, they're getting bigger as I go up. So that's most CPU cycle. And then if I did ascending, I guess it doesn't have ascending. What else do I have? Oh, unique. Gives me unique values. I guess if I don't do it with anything, it just which one unique? There we go. They have to have unique variables there, and you'll see that it runs it from the opposite side, right? So there we go. So we have descending, and now we're only going to get the top 5 objects. Select dash first, and then we're just going to say the first 5. And this is going to give us the most intensive processes that are running on our CPU right now. And there we go, virus threat protection. Was that on there? Nope, it's not even on there. But you'll notice Explorer, which is the basic windowing system of Windows. That's the most. Actually, not really, because 16.03 seems to be higher than that, but I guess it does it based on averages. This is peak, probably. PowerShell's a second. And all the other ones. All right. If I wanted to get the top 10, I could do top 10, and it'll give it to me the top 10. All right, so you'll see how this is the first process, the first commandlet that we run, get process. The output from that is fed in to our sorted object commandlet, and that's going to sort them based on most CPU usage down to least. Then we're going to pipe the output of that into a third command, which is going to select objects and give me just the first 10. Right? So that's the progression that we're happening here, right? First one feeds into the second one feeds into the third one. And it's all separated with this pipe command. And that's the command you find right above your enter key. If you hold the shift, it's shift / and that gives you your pipe. Okay, let's look at the get service. And that should give me all the services that are running, whether they're in stopped mode or running mode. It doesn't matter. It's just giving me all the services that this computer has the capability to turn on or off. So it doesn't show me whether, I mean, it doesn't distinguish whether they're running or not. So I'm getting all of them here. If I only want to look at the name and the status, in this case, I have name, status, and what else do I have? Like Not too far. Oh, and then display name. So I get status, name, and display name. I want to switch that. In fact, all I care about is name and status. So we're going to switch name and status, and I can use that with the format table. I think I'd also do that with format output, but let's clear our screen with, oops, I have to type CLS on. Click over into my Windows thing, hit CLS. There we go. So we saw the get service. I'm going to pipe that output to the next command called format. And I can just tab through till I get to format table. In this case, I want to type name, comma, status. And that'll give me the name and status. Now, I think I could also do that, that format object. Or is it select object? Yeah, select object. So I could either use format table or my select object. Either way, and I think with format table, though, do I have other options? There's a bunch of different attributes I can pass in with. Now, I thought there was one that would be, does it view, no, I was trying to show me how to do it as a horizontal, but that's okay. We don't need to do that now. I don't want to get too fancy with this, but format table will give it to us in a table output, and it's comma separated by the fields that you care about. In this case, name and the status. I think I could, let's try this, where status, or is that going to be in, it's been a while since I've done this. Bear with me here for a second. Where let's see if this works here. Nope. We'll just try this. Give me everything. Okay, good. Now let's see if I can get just the running ones. No, why is that not working? Oops, what did I do wrong there? All right, what I was trying to do is use a where clause to get just running processes. Let's go, when we get stuck on something, we can always go to ChatGPT. We'll just ask PowerShell, or we'll ask ChatGPT how to get all of the ones that we care about. All right, here, this is what I want. So this one says get process. We're going to pipe the output of that into sort object by WS descending, and that should get us, let's see if that works. All right, we want to clear our screen. Can't spell property. And I don't remember what it said, so we gotta scroll down. Oh, I could just do this. Bring this whole thing up so I can see. There we go. Did I not type this right? Oh, and the services. Did I say processes? Yeah, I meant to say services. Get PowerShell. Get this is the one I want. All right. Ah, that's what I was trying to get at. That was the example I was trying. Why did the like not work though? That's kind of weird. All right, let's clear our screen. Let's go back up until I find the one that I had. They wanted status, and they wanted to be equal to running. And they did it as a single quote string. I don't think it should matter. No, I didn't think so. Let's get rid of this format table in between. Let me see if that works. Ah, I bet you that's what it was. Okay. I know what happened. This format table also does the toString. So let's, instead of format table, let's do my idea of select object. Select out for output. Select object, there it is. Ah, okay. So there we go. That's the big difference. I should have seen that. Okay, so get service is giving us back the services as objects. Format table will then convert those to text and put those as text output to our screen. So then when I was trying to do the where on an object, it was coming up with nothing running because the I was getting text, and that's not what I want. I want to have the object. And so if I do select object, now I'm getting back the object value with name and status. And then I can use this where clause with this $_ underscore is a special variable. Remember we saw variables start with the $. $_ underscore goes through each service, each output from the select object, and is assigned this variable one by one. So it's going through item by item, object by object, checking the status to see if it's running. And I bet if I go and I take this to be like, instead of running, I can just say R star, because star is the wildcard. And that'll show me only the running process because there's either running or stopped. So R is all I needed. So that command works just like I had before. But we can also do it with double quotes. Again, doesn't make a difference on the quotes. If it's whatever you start with, you have to end with. So if I start with a single quote, I have to end with a single quote. Since I started with a double quote here, I have to end with a double quote. Either way, they'll both work, but you have to stick with it. But that's the big difference, right? Select object gives it to us as an object, whereas format table gives it to us as text, and there's no status attribute when it's text, right? That's the big difference. All right, I learned something new. I love it. I love learning new stuff like that and figuring it out. Good learning moment. All righty, so where are we at? That puts us on, if I had get child item, if I had export CSV, I could put it into, there is what it's going to do now is I'm going to put it to a file, and that's what export CSV is going to give us. We're actually going to put it out as a file. So in this case, let's put it out to our documents directory. So cd documents. And now I'm in documents, right? So now if I do get child item, and I just hit enter, that's going to give me my output. But I want to have the hidden, so I'm going to do -HIDDEN. That gives me all of those. But now I want to put that to a file. So I'm going to pipe this output now to somewhere else. In this case, I'm going to export CSV, not alias. And that comma separated value. So now it's going to take this, give me my mode, my last write time, my length, and my name as a comma separated item here. In this case, the path dash, I don't need to even set the path. I think I can just give it, well, let's try it. /, and I'll just call this test.csv and see if this works. Okay, so now if I do a dir or get child item, you'll see now we have this test.csv. So if I want to see that, there's the DOS command called type, and I could type test, and it should put it out to the screen. Lots of information, right? Probably much easier to open it up in something like Excel. I don't think I have Excel on this computer, but let's go to our documents and see if I can open it in, I don't know, Explorer maybe? Edge. Can Edge open CSV files? We'll find out. Cannot. It'll just shut it down. Okay. I can open it in Notepad. It'll be a little better. Open with. WordPad might be best. Let's see. But it's going to just be a bunch of gobbledygook. If it was in Excel, it would make a lot more sense. I don't have Excel, so you won't be able to see the columns that you could see in Excel. It would be much easier. But that is too much information. So what we could do is let's clear our screen, go back to the command that we had before, but instead of exporting everything, let's practice getting just the things that we care about, right? So if I do just this, I have name, and let's look up mode, right? So I could do pipe this out to select object. In this case, I want name, comma, mode. And now I get just those two things. So now let's push this out to a CSV file where it's a lot cleaner. And so we'll do export CSV. And then we're going to set the path. Dot for the current directory that I'm in. I'm going to override our test because there we go. So now I've overridden what was in our test file. Oh, maybe I didn't. Should be test.csv. There it is. There we go. Much cleaner, right? Name and mode, and you can see the various files there. And since I did the hidden, I get to see everything. I thought I called it test.csv. Oh, but I'm in a different directory. That's why. Okay, cool. All right, so that is number 5. Hopefully you learned something. I certainly learned something on this one. Definitely time to take a stretch break, get up from a computer for a minute, get something to drink, and come back here in a couple of seconds. Go ahead and pause it and then come back. And when you get back, we'll talk about scripting. All right, let's clear out my screen. Welcome back. We're going to talk about some scripting now, since that's the big advantage of PowerShell, is that it is a scripting language. You'll notice that any extension that ends in .ps1, that tells it that it's PowerShell. We can get to that by, we can create our own. If we type in PowerShell, you'll notice that I've been clicking this first one here that pops up, Windows PowerShell, but there's also this one called ISE, and that's the integrated scripting engine for PowerShell. This one lets us help write scripts. This is the built-in one that comes with PowerShell. If you're like me on my host computer, I would typically use VS Code. So I'll pull up VS Code here in a second. Of course, you come up on the wrong screen. Pull it up here real quick. So VS Code, again, made by Microsoft, completely free. You can come here and download it, and let's see if I hit Control and type in PowerShell. And then I could come in here and I can start playing around, and I got PowerShell right here, and I could run commands. But I can write my script up here. I don't want to play around with this too much because I really want to show you what's built in. But if you're an advanced coder, definitely learned VS Code. That's where everything's going. Again, it's also cross-platform, great text editor. You can use it to edit your Bash files, your PowerShell files, your Python files. So pretty much across the board, VS Code is your one-stop shop for the best editor out there. All right. So here's the integrated scripting engine. Where am I missing a window here? Usually there's another window up top here that lets me see the command. Is it? Not in here. Where is it? There it is. Okay. If that doesn't show up, there's a little button here that lets you. So here's where I type in my scripts, and then here's where I can test it. Here is a commands panel, so I can see all the different commands that I want to do. And so I can start writing some examples here. So let's take the example that they have. So we're going to say age equals, in this case, 20. So they're just below the drinking age. We're going to say if, we're going to do an if command, open close parentheses, and we're going to say $age. So we're looking at that variable is greater or equal than dash GE, which stands for greater than or equal to. And we'll say in this case 18. And in this case, we'll open with a curly bracket, and then where the curly bracket closes is where the if statement ends. So what I could do, and I like to put them on my own, oops, not too far, I want not. So now anything in between this curly bracket on line 4 and 6 is going to be run only if this if statement is true. So I usually tab it over with 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to write my my next command here. In this case, write dash host, and we'll say something like that. And then now, if they're not an adult, this is where the else block of code is going to be run. And I'm going to put those on its own line just so you kind of see it. So now only anything between lines 8 and 10 at the moment will be run only if the user is less than 18, because greater than or equal to, they're an adult. Okay, 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, that's a rule of thumb. You don't have to do it. You could also use tabs. I'm just a 4-space type person. Here we're going to type write host. Okay. Something like that, right? So not an adult yet. Okay, now if I want to test this, I can come up to the beginning of my thing and hit run. And it says, you are an adult, because that's the output, right? What I could do now is I'm going to save this. I'll just save it into my documents as check age. Now if I go see, this is a thing I should learn. So I was trying to run a script, but PowerShell only lets you run scripts if you give it permissions to run scripts, because by default, hackers could come in and try to run malicious scripts. So you really want to make sure that you've got your system locked down. One of the things you can do is don't allow unsigned scripts to run. In this case, the script is not malicious, but it certainly could have been. Like I can run any kind of script that I want if I change my execution policy. But for this demo purposes, I'm going to set the execution policy. Isn't it execution policy? Nope. Oh, it's set dash. What am I doing? There we go. Set execution policy. And then there's different options I have. You can see these are the different options that I can set. In fact, I'm going to set bypass. I think that's the one I want. Oops. And then I have to explicitly say yes. Did I not do that right? Oh, because my script is run as the user account, not elevated, I don't have permission to change the execution policy. So what I have to do that the rerun PowerShell, but this time I'm going to run it as an administrator. So I start typing PowerShell, and then I'm going to click the Run as Administrator option, and it's going to use the what's it called? The user, what's it called? Where it asks me for my permissions, and it's not coming up. Why is that not UFC or something like that? What happened? Did not like that for some reason. There it is. Okay. UAC, User Account Control. This is the check to make sure that I have permission to elevate privileges. And since I logged in as a user account that's not in the admin group, I actually have to type in credentials. All right, so now once that, if I type the password in right, should let me run set execution policy. Nope, I didn't type it in right. It's thinking about it. All right, so now you'll see how it says administrator up here. So now I should be able to set execution policy to bypass. And if I hit yes this time, it gives it to me no problem. All right, so now I've set the execution policy, close my administrator one. I can get execution policy, and you'll now see that it's set to bypass. So I should be able to, after I clear my screen, go back up and run our check age PowerShell script. And because we had the age set to 20, and the check was only to see if you're greater than 18, it tells us that we're an adult. If I go in and change the script, we'll go ahead and edit it. Where's my check age script? We're going to edit it with Notepad. So I go to Open With, and double click Notepad. Here I'm going to change it, instead of 20, I'm going to say 15. Save it. Come back and run it again, and this says not an adult yet. All right, so that's the first example where we just do a quick else or an if statement and then have the else block run if the condition wasn't met. The first time through it was met, so we got you're an adult. Second time through, once we change the age, we change the condition failed on the if, so then it runs the else block of code. The else block of code starts with a curly brace here and ends with a curly brace here. Whatever I run in between those two is going to be only run if the else condition is met. All right, next is our for loop. This is going to run a defined number of times. That's what for loops are really good at. If you know ahead of time how many times you want to run through a list, you're going to want to use a for loop. For instance, if I have an array of items, I know how many items are in my array. I can loop through item by item. That's a really good candidate to being a for loop, or a for each loop in this case. If you don't know, like you're asking a user for input until they're all done, like creating a grocery list, right? You don't know, this week you may have 30 items, next week you may have 50 items. That's a really good condition for a while loop. A loop that runs an indefinite number of times until some condition is met, right? So maybe I ask them to keep putting in items until they say the word done. Once they say the word done, then it'll break out of the loop, right? So each time they run the program, it can be different numbers of times. In this case, this example, we're going to do a for loop first. Clear our screen. And by the way, CLS, if I do get alias on that, you'll notice that that is just, there's a command called clear-host. Again, much more intuitive if you're learning the language to begin with to learn clear-host than having to map in your mind CLS equals clear screen, right? So if I can just type the word, I know I want to clear something, right? So I can just clear dash and I hit tab until I see the word host come up, right? All right, just going back to our alias talk that we had earlier. All right, number. We're going to define a variable called number. And we're going to say it's equal to 1.5. And what does that do? Let's just print that out, right? So we don't know what that is. We've never seen that before. We're going to do a, well, first we can do a $ numbers. And I can do get type. And it'll just tell us the type it is. In this case, it's an array. So we know an array has a bunch of items in it. So let's now see if I can print those out. So to print to the screen, what do we run? We ran a, what was it? Write-host on numbers. And there it goes. That's what our array contains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the dot dot tells us, hey, I want to go from number 1, get me to number 5 by steps of 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I change the 5 to be 20, and I output it now, you'll see that I get all those items. So I'm defining a host with a start number and an end number, and it step sizes by 1. So that's just how that syntax works. So I know you've never seen that before with a double dot, but that's what it's doing, right? It's going from the beginning number to the ending number in steps of size of 1, right? Okay, so let's use what a for each loop looks like. For each $num in numbers. Oops, backspace that out. And then I'm going to run a curly bracket. Then I'm going to write out close that out and then hit enter. All right, so what did I do? Let's go back up and kind of look at the code here. This for each loop is going to run through our numbers array that we created, right? And that numbers array starts at 1 and goes to 20. Each time through, we're going to define a variable num, and it's going to start at 1. Then the next time through, it'll be number 2. Then it'll be number 3. And so that variable num gets executed 20 times. Each time it changes its value by 1, and it goes through that loop. And so we get all 20 outputs from our numbers array. Each time through, it's assigning the variable num to the current item in the numbers array. All right, similar, we can do the same kind of concept with a while loop. So we'll clear the screen. And let's actually run this next time in our scripting engine, just so you can kind of see the code written out a little cleaner. We'll create a new one. And it's nice, it tabs them up here for you so we can kind of see them in the tab. All right, let's create counter. And we're going to just say it's equal to 0. And then we're going to say a while this time. So we're going to start open close parentheses. We're going to use our variable counter. While counter is less than LT, that stands for less than, in this case 5. Then I'm going to do our block of code. So start with a curly bracket, end with a curly bracket. Anything in between is going to be part of the while loop. So we're going to, I meant that 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm indenting 4 spaces. That's just a rule of thumb. You don't have to. I could do 2 spaces, right, if I wanted to. In fact, we'll do that real quick just to show you. And then the variable counter, $. Okay, so that should work. Go ahead and run this. Yep, control stop that. One thing I forgot to do was increment counter. So counter never changed. So it was always less than 5. So let's increment counter. So if you're a programmer, you'll probably be familiar with the syntax. Counter plus plus basically says I want to increment counter by 1. it's the same thing as if I wrote counter equals counter plus 1, but programmers are lazy, so they've come up with that shorthand to just use the plus plus sign. And so now you're probably familiar with why we call C is the programming language originally, and now we call it C++. That's where it came from. That's the syntax, or why we call it C++, is it's really the next iteration of the C programming language. All right, so that's the while loop, and you'll see that it increments out and goes through 5 times, but it started at 0 since we defined it as 0, and then we incremented it 1 through each time. All right, on to some practical examples. Almost done now. We're on the home stretch. I've just got a few examples I wanted to run through and see how we can take this new stuff that we just learned and apply it to real-world syntax, right? All right, so I've got 4 examples that we're going to go through. We're going to show you simple file manipulation. So if I want to copy files, then we'll look at WMI objects. I hinted at this beginning when I was talking about PowerShell. Before we even got to step 1, I was talking about what is a WMI. We looked it up, and that's the Windows machine. I think it was interface, something like that. But it's basically the way that we're going to interact with the services running on our system. So we're going to start and stop services down below with the print spooler. We'll add a user. Actually, and then we'll have another one where I'll show you how we can do this remotely. And this is why I have my server set up. At the beginning, I showed you I had a Windows server and a client. We've been doing everything in the client up to this point. I'm going to show you how I can do this from the server and push the stuff to the client. That shows you how we can do this as remote management. So those are the 5 items I want to get through here real quick. We'll start with the first one with file system operations. Let's go ahead and clear our screen, get rid of our calculator. All right, the first thing they want to do is we're going to create some test folder. Let's go ahead and create in our documents directory. So if I want to make a directory, mkdir, and I can get the alias for that. Git. I guess there is no alias for make directory, so we just got to make directory that way. In this case, they want to call it test folder. Okay, so now I've got a test folder, and you'll look under my documents. Look at that, we've created a test folder from the command prompt. Awesome. So you got that there. Let's create some stuff in that test folder. So echo test. And we're going to call this file 1. All I did there is if I go to my test folder now, I should have a file called file 1, and it should have the word test in it. All right, what I did, if you look here, is I echoed, which typically writes it out to the screen. It's the same thing as write host. I just gave it the word test. I could have said hello world. This greater than symbol redirects my output from my command to a file. Instead of to another, if I use the pipe, it goes to another command. If I use the greater than symbol, it goes to a file. In this case, the file that we created is file1.txt. Okay, so now what I want to do, I'm going to create, oh, they want me to copy item. So really I did the new item. That's how I did the make directory. That's where new item comes in. So let's do new item. Net item, I want new item. New item, in this case, I'm going to be in the current directory. So my dot is my current directory. And Microsoft's everything is backslashes for some reason. We already created the test folder. We're going to create test folder 2 because I kind of used the old school way of doing it. So we're going to test folder 2. And so now if I do a git child item, you'll see now I have test folder and test folder 2. But you'll notice that test folder 2 is actually a file, not a folder. And that's because I forgot to say item type is directory. So let's get rid of that item. I'm just going to come over here to save us some time and delete test folder 2. Delete. Go back up, do that same thing, but this time we're going to say item type is going to be a directory. Now, when I come over here, you'll see that test folder 2 is in fact a folder. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to copy what was in test folder 1 and put it into test folder 2. So there's going to be a copy. And it always goes source, then destination. For Windows, Linux, it's always the same. Till I learned this till I was blue in the face in school, because you never remember. For some reason, I can never remember which one was first and second. Always is your source and then your destination. So we're going to copy item. I want the source, which is our test folder 1, or just test folder. And then in this case, it was, I forgot what we had in there. Was it file.txt? And I'm going to put that to our destination. In this case, we're in the documents directory. So if I do /test folder 2, and then I just leave it like that, it's going to copy file 1 and put it into our test folder 2. Just to verify, come over to test folder 2, double click. You'll see we have file 1 in there as well. Great, so that works great. So now I want to remove the old folder, test folder that we made. Not remote, I want remove. /test folder. Now I'm not going to do the dash recurse, and I'm going to show you why here in a second. And then it pops up, hey, if you continue, all children removed in this item. So it's going to do the recursive whether or not we want it to do that command or not. So I'm going to say no. And then what I'm going to show you, get-help on remove item. Remove-item. One thing I want to show you is remove item has 2 special fields. On a lot of commands that do OS manipulation, where they're going to manipulate files or something on the operating system, they have a what if and a confirm option. So I always try to do these options if available, or at least I do the confirm option if available. What if just shows me what will happen if I run this command. It doesn't actually run the command, it'll just show you what will happen. Whereas confirm will ask you to make sure that you want to do something before you do anything that could potentially cause harm. So what we're going to do here is what if. And then it just says, hey, what you're going to do is this is what's going to happen. In this case, we'll say no again. And then somebody this time I'm going to do confirm, which thankfully it already does the confirm by default for me. So if I didn't do the dash confirm, it kind of does the same thing. So I'm just going to say yes this time. Why is it? It's going to go through each and every single item, making sure that I want to do it. Now if I go back, you'll see that test folder is gone. All right, so let's take a look at our system information with using WMI. We'll clear this out. Get-WMI object, Win32, underscore operating system. Okay, I gotta spell it out. This is going to give me information on the operating system. You can see who's it's registered, all that kind of good information. But again, it's an object. So if I don't want to get that specific data and I want some other data, we're going to pipe this out because it's an object that has more information inside it that it's actually not displaying for it. So in this case, I'm going to get caption, version, and OS architecture. Slide this over just so I can make sure I have it all right. Select object, caption, version, and architecture. And there we go. So it tells us it's Windows 10 Pro, tells us a specific version with the build number, and then it tells us that it's a 64-bit. All right, we're going to do get-net adapter. And I'm just going to run that, and you'll see my network adapter. It's because I'm on a virtual machine, it's an Intel Pro gigabit adapter, and it is up and running because I only have the one adapter. If I ran this exact same command on my host, because I have a bunch of virtual machines and I have my host adapters, I would have a bunch more adapters on this one, on my host. In this case, I don't even need to do the pipe to the where because we see that I only have one adapter and it is in fact up. So the piping it over to the where objects clause is not going to make a difference because the status is already up. All right, clear our screen. We're going to show the services that are running. So let's just do get services, or just get service, not services. And that shows us all the services. Remember, this is the one where we learned how we could do the pipe. We do the where. We did the curly brackets, that special variable, $_ underscore. And then we said status. I think it was status, right? Dash like. And then we said running. And that shows us all the running statuses. Yep. We're looking for one that specifically is the spooler, so I'm going to change it from running to spooler. And it's not going to be under status, it's going to be under name, because that's the different attribute. And you'll see we have the name called spooler, and its display name is the print spooler, and the current status is running. So there we go. We used the get service, we piped it over with the where clause, found the name, and we found the specific one we wanted to look for. Remember that the pound, not the pound sign, the asterisk here that I had highlighted, that is a wildcard. That means any characters. So it has to start with SPO, but then it could be anything after that. And so that's why I came up with just spooler. Okay, so we're going to stop that service. So stop-service. We're going to say the name, and the name happens to be spooler. And I must have done something wrong. Up. Because I am not running as administrator? Probably. Let's try running this with the admin rights. And we type in PowerShell. We're going to run as administrator. We got to elevate our privileges with UAC, that pop-up that's going to ask us for our credentials. Yeah, starting and stopping services definitely requires higher level privileges. So we are going to have to log in with the administrator account. Give that a second. All right, so we got our elevated command prompt. We're going to run this command to see if, first we'll do get service. We're going to pipe that through to our actually, we'll do the where clause. Where curly brackets $_ underscore, that special variable. Yeah, I think we said the name, it was spooler, right? There we go. Yep, that's what we had. So now we're going to stop that service. All right, and just to check it, we'll see that it is indeed stopped. We'll go ahead and start it back up. Tab autocomplete failed me. Start service, there it goes. So we do that, and voila, we have it running again. So we can start and stop services using PowerShell. Again, you have to have elevated permissions to start and stop services that are at the system level, or at least admin rights, right? All right, so we're going to add a user to the domain. So that's something that administrators do all the time. We can automate this script. It makes life a lot easier. So I need to boot up my server. So apparently server is turned off. So let's go ahead and click on server 1 and start it back up. And we'll take a minute to boot for us here. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and log out of Bob. Can I sign out this way? Yep, sign out. And I'm going to try to log in with test user 1. Sign out anyway. But because test user 1 doesn't exist, test type in the password, and I should get an error because test user 1 doesn't exist unless name or password doesn't exist. So now we're going to log into our server. Input keyboard, Control Alt Delete. Okay, so this is my Windows 2016 server. This is my Active Directory server, and then this is my computer that's connected to the Active Directory. Now let's make this a little bigger so we can see it. Okay, first thing we'll do is we'll pull up Active Directory, users and computers. And here's all the user accounts that we have. You'll notice test user is not one of them. So let's open up PowerShell. And let's make this font much bigger. So we can kind of see what we're doing. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a user, and I think I have guest additions installed on here. So I think I can copy and paste, right? Can I? Yeah, I should be able to paste. Let's see. Nope. Okay, well, we'll just have to type it out. Okay, so $ password equals, and we want to use a secure string because we want to store anything that's going to be in memory. We don't want to have the password in actual memory. So we're going to convert to a secure string. It doesn't like convert to secure string. String, in this case, we're going to use our default password of PA$W0RD. And then we're going to tell it as plain text, and we'll force that in there. Okay, so now $password is a secured string with our password that we have in there. So we're going to use new dash AD user SAM account name. In this case, we're going to call this test user 1. And we'll say the name is also test user 1. I don't need to give a name. We're going to go ahead and do dash password is $password. And then we're going to enable this account. $true. All right, so something went wrong. Let's see here. Oh, we can't use that password because it's not secure enough. So let's just change this password to be, I don't know, password 123. Oh, so it did create the user, it just failed after the creation of the user. So let's go ahead and delete. I'm going to refresh our user accounts. Create the test user. I don't see it on there, so how did it create it? All right, let's clear our screen. Test user 2. All right, so test user 2 should now exist. What do I got? Test user 2. I don't know what the password is. What did I do wrong here? Oh, password 123. I forgot to add the 123, I think. Test user 2 $PA $W0RD123. Nope. Okay, still not working. All right, what did I do wrong? Okay, don't know what I did wrong. We're going to go to our tools. Test user 2, right there. What did I do wrong? Okay. Yeah, it should work. All right, what we'll do, I'm going to right click on test user 2 in case the password didn't get set right. Reset the password. In this case, we're going to just set it to our default PA $W0RD. Let's now see if I can log in with test user 2. Yeah, so now I have to change the password. Cool. All right, password's been changed, and now I'm creating a new account. So I created a whole new account using just PowerShell. Next thing we're going to do, I'm going to get out of the screen here, go to our CLS. All right, last thing I wanted to do before we call it a night is look at how we can do remote things on our system. So my Windows 10 computer that's booting up right now, is the computer name is Win10 Client. So I'm going to show you how from the server I can actually log in to that Win10 client. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So that's, I forgot, I should probably have the Word document so we can kind of see the text going on there. Put that at the bottom. So we're going to enter a PS, which is a PowerShell session, and that's a remote session is what we're really trying to do here. So from our server, let's make the font a little bit bigger. All right, so enter PS session. And then I got to give it the name of the remote computer. In this case, it's Win10 client. And hopefully it'll be able to create a remote session over to our client here. All right, let's verify that I have the name right. So we're going to come over here and type in system. Oops. Go to control panel. There should be, if I go to the small icons or large icon, doesn't matter. Look for system. The computer name. Yep, Win10 client. So that is right. Verify the specified computer name is valid. I must have, I have to enable WinRM probably. So we're going to open up PowerShell over here. Again, as an administrator, because what I'm about to do. I enable Does it enable remoting? All right, I don't know how to enable it. Let's go to our ChatGPT. How do I enable WinRM? All right. Oh, it's PS remoting. Okay. Now I probably should do the force. All right, why then I do? Oh, it's already set up. Okay. So it should be running. Okay. Why is my server not able to talk to it now? Let's find out what's going on here. Come on, server, where'd you go? Okay, so trying to enter the session failed for the following operations. Verify that the special computer name is valid. So let's see, is the computer name valid? Ping Win10 client. And I am able to ping it. I am not. Oh, I bet it's firewall rule then. Let's see if the okay, we got the Windows Defender firewall. I'm just going to go ahead and turn it off for now. Okay, firewall is off. So it's definitely not a firewall issue now. Now can I ping? And it looks like I can see it now. Yeah, good. All right, I can see the computer now. Can I remote to the computer now? Oh, look at that. Now I am in on that remote computer. Remember, I'm logged in over here as, well, I'm an administrator on this, but remember I logged in as test user 2, right? So what I'm going to do is I want to go back to the users directory. And if I do a dir here, you'll see test user 2 exists. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that directory, and I'm going to go to that desktop. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is from here, we're going to say new item, and we're going to call it, I don't know, test dir, and then we said it was item type directory. So now you'll see from the server, I was able to create the test directory. And so you'll see I can, from a remote computer, I can push patches, I can push content, I can manage the systems all remotely. And that's the real power of PowerShell. Microsoft bought a company called Sys Internals. Let's see, that's the is that how I spell it? I didn't write that yet. Sys Internals. So Microsoft, this company out there was making all these scripts and it was really good. So they ended up just buying the company. But Sys Internals is a bunch of tools you can use to remotely manage your systems across the enterprise. And so if you really get into PowerShell, I highly recommend you learn all about Sys Internals and the power that, that it provides a system administrator. It was founded 28 years ago, but it's been updated and really powerful these days, right? So check that out. Hope you learned something tonight. It's a long class. I know we're a little over, almost up to 2 hours already, so that's a lot, but it's a pretty decent intro to PowerShell. Lots of books out there. Check Amazon, check your resources, check your local library. They'll have some good stuff. Maybe not on the latest and greatest of PowerShell, but maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and that's still quite a bit of content to get through, and it's free at the library. So check it out. Amazon's got good stuff too. I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.